The ugly, disabled alien queen discovered the truth: the human warrior was her main ally. The great throne room of the Velthari Empire was filled with whispers. Noble lords and ladies stood in small groups, their voices low, but their meaning clear. They spoke of their queen with words that cut like knives, though none dared say them loud enough for her to hear. Queen Zixara sat on her throne, her body wrapped in flowing robes that hid the twisted shape of her legs. Her left arm hung at an odd angle, and scars marked her face where the genetic condition had left its mark. The nobles called her the Broken Queen when they thought she could not hear. They said she was unfit to rule, that someone like her could never lead their proud empire. But Queen Zixara heard everything. Her condition had taken much from her, but it had sharpened her mind like a blade. She knew every whisper, every plot, every secret deal made in the shadows of her palace. She had to be smarter than everyone else, because she could not be stronger. Today was different, though. Today, visitors had come from a far world called Earth. Humans, they called themselves. Most of the galaxy thought humans were primitive creatures, barely worth notice. But Queen Zixara had studied their history and found something interesting. These humans had survived terrible wars, harsh worlds, and countless dangers. They were survivors, just like her. The human delegation stood near the great doors. Their leader was a tall man with dark hair and careful eyes. His name was Marcus Chen, and he wore the simple uniform of a diplomatic escort. The queen watched him as he looked around the throne room, noting how his gaze lingered not on the gold decorations or precious stones, but on the exits and the positions of the guards.
"Your Majesty,"
said Lord Vexther, her chief advisor, his voice dripping with false respect. "The human delegation wishes to present their credentials." Queen Zixara nodded slowly. "Let them approach." The humans walked forward, their boots clicking on the marble floor. The nobles watched them with barely hidden disgust. To the Velthari, who valued physical perfection above all else, the humans seemed crude and ugly. They were shorter than most galactic species. Their skin came in different colors. They had no natural weapons or armor. But Marcus Chen did something that surprised everyone in the room. Instead of addressing Lord Vexther or one of the other male nobles, as was the custom, he looked directly at Queen Zixara and bowed deeply. "Your Majesty," he said in clear, respectful tones, "I am Marcus Chen, representing the Earth Alliance. We bring greetings from our world and hope for friendship between our peoples." The throne room fell silent. No one spoke directly to the queen. Even her own nobles usually addressed their words to her advisors, as if she could not understand them herself. But this human, this primitive creature from a backwater world, treated her like she was actually the ruler of the empire. Queen Zixara felt something stir in her chest. When was the last time someone had looked at her face without flinching? When had anyone spoken to her as if her words mattered? "Welcome to the Velthari Empire, Marcus Chen of Earth," she replied, her voice carrying clearly through the great hall. "We are interested to learn more about your people." Over the next few hours, the humans were shown to their quarters and given the basic tours that all diplomatic visitors received. But Marcus Chen kept finding reasons to return to the throne room. Sometimes he asked questions about Velthari history. Sometimes he requested clarification on trade agreements. Each time, he spoke directly to the queen, ignoring the disapproving looks from her nobles. Late that afternoon, an emergency meeting was called. Reports had come in from the border worlds. The Corvan hegemony, their aggressive neighbors, had been testing the Empire's defenses with small raids. 3 mining stations had been attacked in the past week, and 2 Velthari patrol ships had gone missing. The War Council gathered in the strategy room, a circular chamber filled with holographic displays showing the Empire's territory. Kethmer, the Empire's military commander, stood at the center, pointing at red markers that showed the Corvan attacks. "They are testing our strength," the general said, his voice booming through the room. "We should strike back immediately. Show them that the Velthari Empire is not weak." "Foolish," muttered Lord Hodek, the treasury minister. "We cannot afford a war right now. Our forces are spread too thin across the outer colonies." "Then what do you suggest?" snapped Admiral Vexani. We let them steal our worlds one by one? As the nobles argued, their voices growing louder and more angry, Marcus Chen watched from his position near the wall. He had been invited to observe, though no one expected a primitive human to understand their advanced military discussions. But Marcus was understanding everything, and he was not impressed. These Velthari commanders were thinking like generals from Earth's ancient past, all direct attacks and proud gestures. They had no concept of modern strategic thinking. Queen Zixara sat in her mobile chair at the head of the table, listening to her commanders argue in circles. Marcus could see the frustration in her eyes. She knew something that the others did not see. Finally, the queen raised her hand for silence. General Kethmer, you wish to attack their forward bases directly. Admiral Dexani, you want to blockade their supply routes. Lord Hoddick, you think we should negotiate? All of these plans have one problem. The room waited for her to continue. The Corvins are not trying to conquer us yet, she said quietly. They are mapping our responses. Every patrol we send, every ship we move, they are learning our patterns. General Kethmer, if we attack their forward bases, what will happen? The general frowned. We will destroy them, Your Majesty. Yes, and then they will know exactly how fast our ships can travel, what weapons we use, and how many forces we can send to each sector. Admiral, if we blockade their supply routes, what will they learn? Admiral Dexani's face grew pale as she realized the trap. They will learn our patrol schedules and force distributions. Exactly. The Queen's scarred face showed a slight smile. They are not testing our strength. They are learning our weaknesses, so we must give them false information. Marcus Chen stepped forward before he could stop himself. Your Majesty, if I may? ... The entire room turned to stare at him. Several nobles made sounds of outrage. How dare this primitive human interrupt their military planning? But Queen Zixara nodded for him to continue. On Earth, we call this intelligence warfare, Marcus said. You're absolutely right. You want to learn your capabilities, so you feed them lies. Show them fake weaknesses where you're actually strong, and hide your real strength behind apparent weakness. General Kethmer's face turned dark with anger. A human dares to lecture us on warfare? Your species was barely out of caves when we were conquering star systems? Marcus met his gaze calmly. With respect, General, that's exactly why you should listen to us. We learn to survive by being cleverer than our enemies, not stronger. The Queen leaned forward in her chair. Continue, Marcus Chen. You send ships? To patrol the areas where you want the Corvins to think you're weak, Marcus explained. But you use your oldest, slowest vessels, and you make sure they retreat quickly when challenged. Meanwhile, you hide your best forces in areas the Corvins haven't tested yet. When they finally attack what they think is your weak point, they'll find your strongest defenses waiting for them. The room fell silent as the nobles processed this idea. It was not the Velthari way to appear weak, even as a trick. Their culture valued strength and honor above all else. But Queen Zixara understood. She had spent her entire life appearing weak while actually being strong. She knew the power of letting others underestimate you. An interesting proposal, she said carefully. We will consider it. The meeting continued for another hour, but Marcus could see that the real decision had already been made. The Queen's mind was working, turning over possibilities and strategies. She understood what he was suggesting in a way that her proud generals could not. As the council ended, and the nobles filed out, still muttering about the audacity of the human, Marcus lingered behind. Queen Zixara remained in her chair, staring at the holographic display of her empire's borders. They do not respect you, Marcus said quietly when they were alone. The Queen's laugh was bitter. No, they do not. They see only what is broken in me, never what is strong. Their loss, Marcus replied simply. Queen Zixara looked at him with new interest. Why are you here, Marcus Chen? Really here, I mean? Earth could have sent any diplomat. Marcus was quiet for a moment, then spoke honestly. 'Cause someone needs to watch your back, Your Majesty. From what I've seen today, it's not going to be any of your nobles. Before the Queen could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the palace. Emergency lights flashed red, and the sound of running feet echoed in the corridors outside. Assassination attempt, shouted a guard as he burst through the doors. Majesty, someone has fired on the royal wing. Marcus moved without thinking. His training took over as he threw himself between the queen and the doorway, just as a plasma bolt sizzled through the air where she had been sitting. The energy blast caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around and sending him crashing to the floor. Take cover behind the display table, he shouted to the queen, ignoring the burning pain in his shoulder. The royal medical wing was quiet, except for the soft humming of healing machines. Marcus Chen lay on a treatment bed, his shoulder wrapped in bandages that glowed with a faint blue light.
Lady.
The Valtheri medical technology was impressive, but the plasma burns still hurt like nothing he had ever felt before. The door opened with a soft whisper. Marcus expected to see one of the medical staff. Instead, Queen Zixara entered the room, moving slowly in her mobility chair. Her scarred face showed concern, an expression that surprised him. Your Majesty, Marcus said, trying to sit up straighter. You should not be here. Might not be safe. The palace is secure now, she replied, moving closer to his bedside. My guards caught 2 of the shooters. The 3rd one escaped, but we know who sent them. Marcus watched her carefully. In the soft light of the medical room, away from the grand throne room, in the watching eyes of her nobles, Queen Zixara looked different. Smaller perhaps, but also more real, more human in a way. Why did you do it? She asked suddenly. Do? What, Your Majesty? You threw yourself in front of a plasma bolt for me? You do not even know me. We met only yesterday. Her voice was quiet, almost confused. Why would a human risk his life for someone like me? Marcus thought about his answer. Carefully. Someone like you, Your Majesty? You mean someone who cares more about protecting her people than protecting her own reputation? Someone who sees through enemy tricks while her own generals fall for obvious traps? The queen's eyes widened slightly. That is not what most people see when they look at me. Most people are fools, Marcus said simply. On Earth, we have a saying. Judge a tree by its fruit, not by its bark. Your nobles see only your outside appearance. They miss the brilliant mind that keeps this empire together. Queen Zixara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer than he had ever heard it. No one has ever said anything like that to me before. Then no one has been paying attention, Marcus replied. Over the next 3 days, while Marcus recovered from his injuries, Queen Zixara visited him every evening. At first, she came to discuss security matters and the investigation into the assassination attempt. But gradually, their conversations grew longer and more personal. She told him about her childhood, how the genetic condition had appeared when she was only 7 years old, how her father, the previous emperor, had hidden her away from public view, ashamed of having a defective heir, how she had spent years studying military history, political science, and economics in her private chambers, preparing for a role that everyone said she could never fill. Marcus shared his own story. He had grown up in a poor neighborhood on Earth, the son of immigrants who worked 2 jobs each just to pay rent. He had joined the military not for glory, but because it was the only way to get an education. He had fought in 3 different wars before becoming a diplomatic escort, and he had learned that real strength had nothing to do with how you looked. We are both outsiders, the Queen observed during one of these conversations. You, because you are human in a galaxy that sees your species as primitive. Me because I am broken in a culture that worships physical perfection. Maybe that's why we understand each other, Marcus said. Outsiders see things that insiders miss. On his 4th day in the medical wing, Marcus was finally cleared for light duty. Queen Zixara had asked him to join her in the war room, where new reports from the border were coming in every hour. The situation with the Corvin hegemony was getting worse. They had attacked 2 more mining stations and captured a Valthari supply convoy. General Kethmer was pushing harder for a direct military response. We must strike back, the general insisted, pounding his fist on the strategy table. Every day we wait, they grow bolder. Soon they will think we are too weak to defend ourselves. And what exactly do you propose, General? Queen Zixara asked. Calmly. A full assault on their forward base at Kepler Station. We hit them hard and fast. Show them that the Valthari Empire is not to be trifled with. Marcus studied the holographic display showing the positions of both fleets. The Corvon forward base was heavily defended, surrounded by minefields and protected by at least 50 warships. A direct assault would cost hundreds of Velthari lives, even if it succeeded. General Marcus said carefully, "May I ask what intelligence you have on their defensive positions?" General Kethmer's face darkened. "We know they have ships and weapons. That is enough. But do you know how many ships? What type of weapons? Whether they have reinforcements nearby?" "What?" Marcus pressed. "On Earth, we learned that attacking without proper intelligence is just expensive suicide."
"How dare you?"
General began, but Queen Zixara held up her hand for silence. "He raises a good point, General. What do our scouts tell us about their defenses?" General Kethmer looked uncomfortable. "Our long-range scouts have been unable to get close enough. For detailed scans, the Corvins have improved their sensor networks." Marcus and the Queen exchanged a look. Without proper intelligence, any attack would be pure guesswork. "What about their supply lines?" Marcus asked. "Every military base needs food, fuel, and ammunition. Where do those supplies come from?" "From their homeworlds, obviously," Admiral Vexani said with annoyance. "But those are hundreds of light years away, too far to attack." "Not to attack," Marcus said, pulling up a star chart on the display table, "to monitor. If we can track their supply convoys, we learn their patrol routes, their defensive patterns, and their delivery schedules. That information is worth more than destroying one forward base." Queen Zixara leaned forward in her chair, studying the star chart with new interest. "Continue. Look at these shipping lanes," Marcus said, tracing routes on the holographic map. "The Corvins have to use these specific jump points to reach their forward positions. If we position long-range sensors at these locations, we can see everything coming and going. But that would require cloaked surveillance ships," Admiral Vexoni protested. "We do not have that technology." "No," Marcus agreed, "but humans do." The room fell silent. Everyone stared at him. "You would share your technology with us?" General Kethmer asked suspiciously. "Not share," Marcus corrected. "Partnership. Human ships provide surveillance and intelligence. Althari ships provide firepower when the time comes. Both sides benefit." Queen Zixara's eyes were bright with interest. "What kind of partnership are you suggesting, Marcus Chen?" Marcus had been thinking about this for days. The Velthari Empire was powerful, but rigid in its thinking. Earth's forces were smaller, but more flexible and innovative. "Could be formidable. A military alliance," he said simply. "Earth provides advanced reconnaissance technology and strategic planning. The Velthari Empire provides heavy warships and territorial knowledge. We share intelligence and coordinate our responses to mutual threats." General Kethmer laughed harshly. "An alliance between the mighty Velthari Empire and a primitive backwater world? Ridiculous, is it?" Queen Zixara asked quietly. "Your people have experience fighting larger, more powerful enemies. How do you win such battles?" Marcus smiled. "We don't fight them head-on, Your Majesty. We make them fight on our terms, not theirs. We use speed instead of strength, intelligence instead of brute force. We make every enemy advantage into a disadvantage." "Explain." Marcus pulled up tactical displays showing Earth's major military victories. "Your human forces defeated a Centauri battle fleet 3 times our size by using asteroid fields to break up their formations. Here, we stopped a Rigel invasion by targeting their command ships instead of their frontline fighters. Here, we ended a 2-year siege by cutting the enemy supply lines rather than attacking their fortifications directly." The Queen studied each example carefully. Marcus could see her brilliant mind working, understanding not just the tactics but the philosophy behind them. "You fight like I think," she said finally. "Yes, Your Majesty. We fight like survivors." Over. The next week, Marcus and Queen Zixara worked together to develop a new strategy for dealing with the Corvin threat. They met every day in a small planning room, away from the main war council. They could discuss ideas freely without interference from the nobles. Marcus was amazed by the Queen's knowledge of galactic politics and military history. She knew the capabilities of every major fleet in their sector, the trade relationships between different worlds, the hidden alliances that shaped interstellar diplomacy. Queen Zixara, in turn, was fascinated by human tactical concepts. Marcus introduced her to ideas like asymmetric warfare, where a smaller force uses unconventional methods to defeat a larger enemy. He explained adaptive logistics, where supply lines constantly change to avoid predictable patterns. He taught her about psychological warfare, where the goal is to make the enemy make mistakes rather than simply overpowering them. "Your people think very differently from other species," she observed one evening as they reviewed intelligence reports. "We had too," Marcus replied. "Humans started with no natural weapons, no armor, no claws or fangs. We survived by being cleverer and more adaptable than everything that wanted to eat us. And now you offer that cleverness to help us." "To help each other," Marcus corrected. "This alliance benefits both our peoples."
Ow!
But as they worked together, Marcus began to notice things that worried him, small details that suggested. In the red emergency lighting of the planning room, Marcus Chen moved quickly to Queen Zixara's side. The power outage was too convenient to be an accident. Someone wanted them isolated and vulnerable. "Your Majesty, we need to move," Marcus whispered, checking his sidearm. "This room is a trap now." Queen Zixara's fingers flew over the controls of her mobility chair, activating its silent mode. "Wait. There is a service passage behind the star chart's display," she said quietly. "It leads to my private quarters." As they moved toward the hidden passage, Marcus heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Multiple sets of boots, moving with military precision. These were not maintenance workers responding to a power failure. Came a voice from outside. "The door open in the name of Imperial Security." Marcus recognized the voice immediately. It belonged to Colonel Draker, General Kethmer, Chief Aide. But what was Imperial Security doing here? And why were they demanding entry to the Queen's private planning room? "Your Majesty," Marcus breathed, "that is not a rescue party." Queen Zixara had reached the same conclusion. Her face was grim as she opened the hidden panel behind the display. "They are here to arrest us, or worse." The service passage was narrow and dark, designed for maintenance access rather than people. Marcus had to help guide the Queen's chair through the tight spaces, while behind them they could hear the planning room door being forced open. "Scan everything," came Colonel Drachter's voice. Now inside the room they had just left. "Look for any evidence of treasonous communication." "Treasonous communication?" Queen Zixara whispered angrily. "I am the Empress of this realm. Who dares call my actions treason?" Marcus had a terrible suspicion about the answer to that question, but first they needed to reach safety. The service passage opened into the Queen's private chambers, a luxurious suite that few people were allowed to enter. "Your Majesty," Marcus said as they emerged from the passage, "we need to contact your most trusted allies immediately." "I have been thinking about that," the Queen replied, moving to her private communications console. "The problem is, I am no longer certain who I can trust." She activated her personal communicator and tried to contact Admiral Dexani, the head of the Imperial Fleet. No response. She tried Lord Vexther, her chief advisor. The communication failed to connect. One by one, she attempted to reach every major figure in her government, and one by one, the calls failed. "Either our communication system has completely failed," she said slowly, or ... "or everyone you tried to call is part of the conspiracy." Marcus finished grimly. Queen Zixara sank back in her chair, the weight of betrayal crushing down on her. "How is that possible? These people have served my family for generations. Lord Vexther was my father's closest friend. Admiral Vexani saved my life during the Rigel crisis." Marcus moved to the window and carefully looked out at the palace grounds. What he saw made his blood run cold. Imperial Guard units were surrounding the royal wing, setting up a perimeter that looked more like a siege than a protection detail. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "I think your trusted allies have been planning this for some time." Over the next hour, as they remained hidden in the Queen's private chambers, the full scope of the conspiracy became clear. Using the Queen's personal computer system, Marcus was able to access security recordings from the past several weeks. The recordings showed secret meetings between General Kethmer, Admiral Dixani, and Lord Vexler. They showed encrypted communications being sent to unknown recipients. Most damning of all, they showed Colonel Draker meeting with known Corvin agents in the palace gardens. "They have been selling information to the enemy," Queen Zixara said, her voice hollow with shock. "Not just military intelligence, everything. Trade routes, diplomatic secrets, the locations of our hidden defensive positions." Marcus pulled up more files, his anger growing with each revelation. "It gets worse, Your Majesty. Look at this financial data." The records showed large payments being made to offshore accounts controlled by the conspirators. The money was coming from Corvan. Sources: payment for information and cooperation. "They are not just traitors," Marcus said. "They are being paid to destroy your empire from within." Queen Zixara studied the evidence with growing horror. But why? What could the Corvins offer them that they do not already have? Marcus found the answer in a classified communication that had been poorly encrypted. Positions in the new government. "After the Corvins conquer the empire, your former allies will be installed as puppet rulers. They get to keep their power and wealth while your people become slaves." The Queen's hands clenched into fists. For the first time since Marcus had known her, she looked truly angry. "My father trusted these people. I trusted these people. And they would sell our entire civilization for their own comfort." A soft chime from the communication console interrupted her fury. Someone was trying to reach her on a private channel that very few people knew existed. "Your Majesty," came a familiar voice. It was Captain Jurin of the Royal Guard, one of the few officers who had always treated the Queen with genuine respect. "Captain," Queen Zixara replied cautiously. "Where are you?" "In hiding, Your Majesty. Something terrible is happening. General Kethmer has issued arrest warrants for you and the human diplomat. He claims you are both traitors, working with enemy agents." Marcus and the Queen exchanged a look. The conspiracy was moving into its final phase. "Captain, how many of the Royal Guard remain loyal?" the Queen asked. "Perhaps 20 or 30, Your Majesty. The rest have been replaced over the past month. With soldiers loyal to the general, we suspect our communications are being monitored, so we dare not gather in large groups." Marcus took the communicator. "Captain, this is Marcus Chen. The general is the traitor, not us. We have evidence that he has been working with the Corvins for months." "I believe you, sir. But what can we do? They control the palace, the fleet, and most of the military." It was Queen Zixara who answered. "We can expose them, Captain. But first, we need to survive long enough to get the truth to the people." Over the next several hours, Marcus and the Queen worked to piece together the full conspiracy. Using her knowledge of palace politics and his experience with military intelligence, they began to understand how deep the betrayal went. The conspiracy had been in planning for over a year. The Corvins had approached key Velthari leaders with a simple offer: "Help us conquer your empire, and we will let you continue to rule your own people under our guidance." For nobles who cared more about personal power than national independence, it was an attractive deal. General Kethmer had been the first to agree, using his position to identify other potential collaborators. Admiral Vexani had joined because she believed the Velthari fleet could not win against the larger Corvin forces. Lord Vexler had been recruited through a combination of bribery and blackmail. Together, they had been feeding the Corvans detailed intelligence about Velthari: defenses, patrol schedules, and strategic plans. They had also been systematically replacing loyal officers with their own supporters, preparing for the moment when they would seize control. The assassination attempt, Queen Zixara realized suddenly, that was not meant to kill me. Meant to provide an excuse for them to take emergency powers. Marcus nodded grimly. When that failed, they moved to Plan B, frame us as traitors and arrest us publicly. Once you are in their custody, they can force you to abdicate or simply claim you died resisting arrest. And then they surrender to the Corvins and claim they saved the Empire from my poor leadership, the Queen finished. The plan was clever, Marcus had to admit. By the time the Valthari people realized what had happened, their government would be full of Corvin collaborators, and their military would be commanded by traitors. But the conspirators had made one critical mistake. They had assumed that Queen Zixara would be helpless once her official supporters abandoned her. They had not counted on the alliance she had formed with the human diplomat. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, studying the palace schematics on her computer. "I think I know how we can turn this situation around." "How?" "The Harvest Festival is in 3 days. According to tradition, you are supposed to make a public appearance. To address the people, the conspirators cannot cancel that without raising suspicions, but they also cannot risk letting you speak freely." Queen Zixara understood immediately. "So they will stage some kind of incident during the ceremony. Make it look like I am the one betraying the Empire?" "Exactly. But what if we let them try and then use their own plan against them?" Over the next 2 days, while Imperial guards searched the palace for them, Marcus and Queen Zixara remained, hidden in her private chambers. They used the time to contact the scattered loyal forces and develop a plan that would expose the conspiracy at the moment of maximum impact. Captain Jurin and his loyal guards would position themselves throughout. The festival crowd, ready to protect key witnesses and maintain order. The Queen's personal staff, who had been dismissed by the conspirators, would work to ensure that the festival's broadcast systems remained under loyal control. Most importantly, Marcus had sent a coded message to Earth using the Queen's private communication array. If their plan worked, they would have backup arriving at exactly the right moment. The festival grounds were filled with thousands of Valthari citizens, all dressed in the bright colors of Harvest Day. Children ran between the market stalls while their parents bought traditional foods and crafts. Musicians played cheerful songs on every corner, and the air smelled of roasted grain and sweet fruits. But beneath the celebration, tension crackled like electricity. Marcus Chen walked behind Queen Zixara's mobility chair, surrounded by guards who were supposed to protect. Her butt were actually her captors. General Kethmer led the procession, his hand resting on his weapon as if expecting trouble. The royal platform stood at the center of the festival grounds, decorated with golden banners and surrounded by thousands of seats for the audience. Queen Zixara would give her traditional speech from this platform, addressing her people about the harvest, the Empire's prosperity, and their hopes for the coming year at least. That was what the people expected. Marcus knew the conspirators had something very different planned. As they approached the platform, Marcus scanned the crowd for Captain Jurin and the loyal guards. He spotted several of them positioned throughout the audience, trying to look like ordinary festival security. The Queen's dismissed staff members were also in place, wearing the uniforms of technical workers as they managed the broadcast equipment. "Your Majesty," General Kethmer said as they reached the platform, "are you ready to address your people?" Queen Zixara nodded calmly. "I have been ready my entire life, General." Marcus helped her onto the platform, noting how the general's supporters had positioned themselves at all the exits. Whatever they were planning, they wanted to make sure no one could escape to tell a different version of events. The Queen moved to the speaking podium, while Marcus took his position near the back of the platform. From here, he could see the entire festival grounds and watch for signs of trouble. Queen Zixara raised her hand for silence, and the crowd gradually quieted. Thousands of faces looked up at her expectantly. Many of these people had never seen their queen in person before. Some looked surprised by her appearance, but most seemed genuinely happy to see their ruler. "My people," the queen began, her voice carrying clearly through the amplification system. "Today we celebrate another successful harvest. Our worlds have produced food for all. Our trade routes remain secure, and our children grow strong and healthy." The crowd cheered at these words. The Valthari took great pride in their prosperity and stability. But Marcus noticed that General Kethmer was looking at his risk communicator. Whatever the conspirators were waiting for, it was about to happen. However, Queen Zixara continued, "There are those among us who would threaten this prosperity. Those who would sell our freedom for their own gain? General Kethmer's head snapped up in alarm. This was not the speech he had expected. Some of you may wonder why I speak of threats on this day of celebration, the Queen said, her voice growing. Stronger it is because I have recently discovered that enemies walk among us, not alien invaders from distant worlds, but traitors within our own government. The crowd began to murmur uneasily. This was definitely not a traditional harvest. Festival speech. General Kethmer stepped forward. Your Majesty, he said loudly enough for the crowd to hear, perhaps you are unwell. The stress of recent events, I am perfectly well, General, Queen Zixara replied firmly. Well enough to recognize treason when I see it. That was the signal Marcus had been waiting for. He activated the hidden recording device in his jacket, which began broadcasting the evidence. They had gathered to every screen and speaker in the festival grounds. The crowd gasped as they heard recorded conversations. Between General Kethmer and Corvin agents, they saw financial records showing payments from enemy sources to high-ranking Valthari officials. They watched security footage of secret meetings where battle plans were shared with the Empire's enemies. Lies, General Kethmer shouted, drawing his weapon. These recordings are fabricated. The Queen has been compromised by human agents. But it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming, and the crowd could see the truth for themselves. Several of the general's supporters moved toward the platform, clearly intending to arrest or silence the Queen before she could say more. That was when Captain Jurin and his loyal guards revealed themselves. They had been waiting throughout the crowd, and now they moved to protect the platform and key witnesses. Stand down. Captain Jurin commanded the traitor guards. You are under arrest for treason against the Empire. Firefight erupted across the festival grounds. The conspirators had brought more supporters than Marcus had expected, and they were willing to use violence to cover up their crimes. Plasma bolts lit up the air as loyal and traitor forces clashed among the panicked civilians. Your Majesty, Marcus shouted over the noise, we need to get you to safety. But Queen Zixara shook her head. No, Marcus. If I run now, people will think the general's lies are true. I must stay and face this. A plasma bolt sizzled past the podium, barely missing the Queen's head. Marcus threw himself in front of her, just as another shot came from a different direction. The energy blast caught him in the leg, sending him tumbling off the platform. The Queen cried, moving her chair to the edge of the platform. Stay back, he called, pulling himself behind cover. His leg felt like it was on fire, but he could still move. Keep talking to the people. They need to hear the truth. More conspirators were closing in on the platform from all sides. Got them. Jurin and his guards were outnumbered and falling back. Marcus realized with growing alarm that their plan was failing. They had underestimated how many traitors were hidden within the palace guard. Queen Zixara seemed to realize the same thing. She looked down at Marcus, who was bleeding and trapped behind inadequate cover, then out at the chaotic battle raging across the festival grounds. Marcus, she called, on Earth, when your people are surrounded by enemies, what do? They adapt, called back, ducking as another plasma bolt scorched the ground near his head. They use whatever they have. The Queen's eyes lit up with sudden understanding. She turned back to the microphone and addressed the crowd with a voice that cut through the noise of battle. Citizens of the Valthari Empire, she shouted. You have seen the evidence. You know who the real traitors are. Will you let them destroy our civilization? The effect was immediate and dramatic. Thousands of ordinary citizens, who had been cowering in fear moments before, suddenly stood up. They had weapons of their own, hunting rifles, work tools, even kitchen knives brought for the festival feast. Protect the Queen, someone shouted from the crowd. Death to traitors, called another voice. The tide of battle began to turn as angry citizens joined the fight against the conspirators. General Kethmer's supporters found themselves outnumbered, not just by Captain Jurin's guards, but by the entire population of the festival. But the general was not finished yet. Seeing his plan collapsing, he made a desperate decision. If he could not capture the Queen quietly, he would kill her publicly and claim she died fighting against a popular uprising. Kill the false Queen, shouted, raising his weapon toward. The platform Marcus saw what was happening and tried to move, but his injured leg collapsed under him. He was too far away and too hurt to help. That was when Queen Zixara did something that surprised everyone, including Marcus. Instead of cowering or trying to flee, she activated her mobility chair's emergency systems. The chair rose into the air on repulsor fields, lifting her above the platform and making her visible to the entire crowd. Her voice, amplified by the festival's sound system, rang out across the battlefield. "I am Zixara, daughter of Emperor Veldin, rightful ruler of this empire," she declared. "I have spent my life protecting this realm, and I will not stop now." The chairs built, defensive. Systems activated, creating an energy shield that deflected General Kethmer's shots. The Queen used the chair's mobility to stay ahead of the traitors. While directing the loyal forces like a general commanding from above, Marcus watched in amazement as the woman he had thought needed protection transformed into a warrior queen before his eyes. Her physical limitations had not made her weak. They had forced her to become stronger in other ways. "Captain Jerome," she called, "move your forces to block the eastern exit. Do not let the conspirators escape. Citizens with weapons," she continued, "form defensive lines around the families with children. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. Loyal guards," she commanded, "advance on the platform. Drive these traitors back." Under her direction, the chaotic battle became an organized campaign. The Queen's brilliant tactical mind, combined with her people's fury at being betrayed, turned certain defeat into overwhelming victory. General Kethmer found himself surrounded, his supporters either captured or fled. He raised his weapon one last time, aiming at the hovering Queen. "If I cannot rule this empire," he snarled, "then no one will." But before he could fire, a new sound filled the air. The deep rumble of atmospheric entry vehicles coming in fast. And low over the festival grounds, Marcus smiled despite his pain. His coded message to Earth had been received. 3 human dropships descended from the sky, their hulls gleaming in the festival sunlight. They landed around the platform, and armed, human soldiers emerged to surround the 3 weeks after the Harvest Festival battle, the great throne room of the Velthari Empire looked completely different. The whispers of doubt and scorn had been replaced by voices of respect and admiration. Noble lords and ladies, who had once mocked their queen, now stood straighter in her presence, understanding finally what Marcus Chen had seen from the beginning. Queen Zixara sat on her throne, no longer hiding in shadows, but commanding the room with quiet confidence. Her mobility chair had been upgraded with New Earth Alliance technology, giving her greater freedom of movement. But more importantly, she no longer felt the need to apologize for her existence. Marcus stood beside the throne, his wounded leg healed but still bearing a slight limp that he wore like a badge of honor. His simple diplomatic uniform had been replaced with the ceremonial armor of a royal advisor, a position created specifically for him by the grateful Queen. "The tribunal has reached its verdict," announced Judge Velkarin, the Empire's highest legal authority. Before them, General Kethmer, Admiral Dexani, and Lord Vexther stood in chains, their faces pale with shame and fear. "General Kethmer," the judge continued, "you are found guilty of high treason, conspiracy with enemy forces, and attempted regicide. Your military honors are stripped, your property seized, and you are sentenced to life imprisonment on the prison world of Kaldor Prime." The former general's shoulders sagged in defeat. His dreams of power and wealth had crumbled into disgrace and exile. "Admiral Dexani, Lord Vexther," the judge said. Turning to the other conspirators, "You are found guilty of the same charges. You will join General Kethmer in exile, where you will have the rest of your lives to think about the empire you tried to destroy." As the traitors were led away, Queen Zixara felt no satisfaction in their punishment. These had been people she trusted, people her father had trusted. Their betrayal still hurt, but she had learned an important lesson about the difference between loyalty and fear. "Your Majesty," said Captain Jurin, now promoted to general in recognition of his loyalty during the crisis, "the Corvin fleet has withdrawn from our borders. Our intelligence suggests they are in complete disarray after losing their inside." Sources, Marcus nodded approvingly. Without detailed information about your defenses and patrol schedules, they cannot plan effective attacks. They have gone from having a major advantage to being completely blind. And our new alliance with Earth, the Queen asked Scott Colonel Sarah Mitchell, who had remained on Velthari Prime as the first Earth Alliance ambassador, stepped forward. The Defense Pact has been ratified by both governments, Your Majesty. Earth's deep space monitoring stations are already providing early warning data for your border systems. Our joint patrol missions begin next week. Queen Zixara smiled. The alliance had proven beneficial beyond even her hopes. Human technology complemented Velthari capabilities perfectly, while Earth's innovative tactical thinking had revolutionized the Empire's military doctrine, but the changes went deeper than military cooperation. The revelation of the Queen's true character had transformed Velthari's society in unexpected ways. Your Majesty, said Minister Teleron, one of the younger nobles who had risen to replace the traitors, the applications for government positions have increased by 300%. Citizens who were previously overlooked due to physical differences or unconventional backgrounds are now seeking to serve the Empire. Marcus was not surprised. Queen Zixar's example had shown the entire galaxy that strength came in many forms. Across the Empire, people who had been dismissed as defective or unsuitable were discovering that their unique perspectives made them valuable contributors to society. There is something else, Your Majesty, Minister Teleron continued. We have received formal requests from 12 other star systems asking to join the Velthariath Alliance. Apparently, news of our victory over internal corruption has spread. Throughout this sector of the galaxy, the Queen exchanged a look with Marcus. Neither of them had expected their desperate fight for survival to inspire others across the stars. Which systems? As Marcus asked. The Centauri Federation, the Rigel Trade Union, the independent worlds of Tau Ceti, and several others, the minister replied. They are all smaller powers who have been struggling against larger, more aggressive neighbors. They see our alliance as a model for how different species can work together for mutual benefit. Queen Zixara considered this carefully, and expanding. Alliance would bring both opportunities and responsibilities. What does Earth think about this expansion? She asked Colonel Mitchell. Our government is very interested, the colonel replied. Earth has always believed that diversity makes us stronger. It's an alliance of many different worlds and species, each contributing their unique strengths, could become a powerful force for peace and stability in this region. Over the following months, the alliance continued to grow. The Queen and Marcus worked together to establish the protocols and principles that would guide this new Confederation of Worlds. They called it the Mutual Defense and Prosperity Alliance, though most people simply referred to it as the Alliance. The key to its success was the lesson that Queen Zixara and Marcus had learned during their own partnership. True strength came not from dominating others, but from recognizing and utilizing everyone's unique capabilities, human innovation in technology and tactics. Combined with Velthari knowledge of galactic politics and trade, Centauri expertise in stellar engineering merged with Rigel mastery of interstellar commerce. Each member world brought something valuable to the whole. But perhaps the most important change was in how the Alliance treated individuals who were different or disabled. Queen Zixara's story had spread across dozens of worlds, inspiring countless people who had been told they were broken or worthless. Your Majesty, said Dr. Cathera, the Empire's new Minister of Social Development, the rehabilitation centers on 15 worlds are reporting unprecedented success rates. People who were previously considered unemployable are finding meaningful work in government, science, and the military. Marcus smiled at the report. It turns out that when you stop seeing differences as weaknesses and start seeing them as unique strengths, people accomplish amazing things. The Queen nodded. My condition forced me to think differently than other rulers. That different thinking saved our empire. Imagine what we could accomplish if we helped everyone discover their own unique strengths. 1 year after the Harvest Festival battle, Queen Zixara addressed the Alliance Council for the first time. Representatives from 23 worlds gathered in the Great Chamber that had been built to accommodate different species and physical needs. Friends and allies, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. 1 year ago, I was a queen hiding in shadows, ashamed of my appearance and doubted by my own people. Today I stand before you as the leader of the strongest alliance this galaxy has ever seen. The applause was thunderous, coming from beings of a dozen different species. This transformation did not happen because I became physically stronger or more beautiful, the queen continued. It happened because someone saw past my appearance to recognize my true capabilities. Marcus Chen of Earth taught me that real allies do not judge by appearances, but by character and actions. Marcus, now bearing the title of Alliance Strategic, Coordinator felt a warm pride as the Queen's words reached across the chamber. Today, our alliance grows stronger not because we are all the same, but because we are all different, Queen Zixara said. Each world, each species, each individual brings unique gifts to our common cause. We do not seek to eliminate our differences, but to celebrate and utilize them. The room erupted in cheers again. Representatives who had once been enemies now stood side by side, united by shared principles rather than shared appearances. The galaxy told me I was broken, the queen said, her voice growing stronger. The galaxy told humanity they were primitive. The galaxy told all of us that we were too small, too weak, too different to matter. Today, we proved the galaxy wrong. The Alliance Council session concluded and representatives from across the stars prepared to return to their home worlds. Marcus and Queen Zixara stood together on the balcony, overlooking the capital city. Do you ever regret it? The queen asked quietly. Throwing your life away to protect someone you barely knew? Marcus looked out at the bustling city below, where humans and Velthari and a dozen other species worked side by side, building something new and beautiful. Your Majesty, he said with a smile, I did not throw my life away. I found it. The queen laughed, a sound of pure joy that carried across the evening air. So did I, my friend. So did I. In the distance, Earth Alliance patrol ships flew alongside. Velthari cruisers, their formation perfect, despite the different designs and capabilities of their vessels. It was a symbol of what the Alliance had accomplished. Unity without uniformity. Strength through diversity, and the proof that true allies could overcome any obstacle when they stood together. Queen Zixara had discovered that the human warrior was indeed her main ally. But more than that, she had discovered that she was stronger than anyone had ever imagined, including herself, and together they had built something that would protect and inspire generations to come.